Should we be talking about Iowa State's Breece Hall in the same prospect tier as Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Ezekiel Elliott? All that and more on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome into the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, everybody. I am Kate Magdziuk. You can follow me on Twitter at FFBallBlast. And as always, I'm joined by the fantastic Marcus Mosher. You could follow him on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss any upcoming shows because, guys, we have the Combine in the rearview mirror, and we are going to start ramping up at a very, very rapid pace. I don't know if we'll what our pace will look like in terms of 40-yard dash split times. But it's going to be fast, guys. Fast. And we got the NFL draft right around the corner. So help us help you build the ultimate dynasty team and leave those 5-star reviews. Please.
Yeah, okay. We got a busy show today. We're going to start with some NFL Combine stuff and eventually get to a mock draft Monday here in the Locked On Podcast Network. But let's start with some of the Combine stuff. So I don't know if it's fun to do winners and losers and all that kind of stuff. There's a couple guys I want to talk about today that I think had just ridiculously good combines. The first is Breece Hall, who many people have as the RB1 in this class. Breece Hall ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at 217 pounds. Going into the week, Kate, he was basically everybody's RB1 that probably shouldn't change, right? So my question to you is, should we start looking at Breece Hall rather than being a Javonte Williams level prospect, a Josh Jacobs level prospect, instead being more of a Saquon Barkley or Jonathan Taylor level of prospect?
I mean, the nicest thing about Breece Hall overall as a prospect, maybe in comparison to some of these other top running backs like Isaiah Spiller, like Kenny Walker, is that he's just so much more well-rounded. He is a refined product in so many more senses. Like I've called Kenneth Walker my favorite pure runner of the class, but he's missing that receiving skill set. Like Breece Hall has it all. Now we polish that off with like just absolute dominance at the combine. So he showcased that he was every bit the athlete that we already thought he was. I'm not ready to peg him as a Jonathan Taylor just yet.
Well, we should. When I say that, I should mention, I'm not saying like going to be the number 2 pick in the draft, or we're talking about like the prospect profile coming out, right? And I gotta say though, it's very intriguing because since 2015, there's only been 3 of these guys. It's Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor, and Saquon Barkley, guys that have run a sub 4.40 and that are over 215 pounds. He's not quite as heavy as those guys, but it's impressive.
But again, it comes back to just the overall balance that Breece Hall shows. And again, it translates back to the field, which is the most exciting part. Breece Hall definitely by far and away, if he wasn't already your RB1, he absolutely is. Again, just the well-rounded nature to his game. Mm-hmm. I think, Jonathan Taylor has him edged out in terms of, that collegiate production, even though Breece Hall's plenty productive.
Yeah, it's good. It's just not quite the same, right?
But as physical prospects, you've got to be excited. Now, is there a chance that with this excellent combine paired with the excellent prospect that we know, is there a chance he slips into the first round? Because we've talked on the show before, we didn't necessarily have any running backs projected for round 1. Are there any teams towards the back of the first round or even mid first round that you could picture taking a chance on Breece Hall?
Probably not, right? I mean, I know the teams that are going to be mentioned all the time are the Cardinals, the Bills. Will Tampa Bay draft one? Will the Dolphins? I just don't see it, right? I think we can go through all those, right? I think the Dolphins are probably going to address their offensive line, and Mike McDaniel comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. Obviously, they don't spend first round picks on running backs, right? They pick up.
Why would you?
Why would you? They pick up guys like Elijah Mitchell in the 7th round, and they're just fine. Buffalo, I don't know. I've got a feeling Buffalo's just not going to do that. The Cardinals, maybe, but I think the Cardinals have other issues. I think your hope is that there's a team at the at the top of the 2nd round that maybe gets a little antsy and trades up, right, to pick 31 or pick 32 to get that 5th-year option. Whether that's, the Jets, Falcons, or somebody like that. But if I had to bet, I would say no, probably not going to get the 1st-round draft capital.
And this is like kind of not necessarily dynasty football related, but in terms of consideration of where these guys are going to be drafted, the more and more that data that comes out about veteran running backs getting off of their rookie contracts and getting that second deal, and just the massive drop off of production there, the more I think, man, why aren't some more of these teams trading up into the 1st round or even trading back from their position, gaining more draft capital and picking up running backs, getting that 5th-year option? Because that's one more year that you don't have to worry about this massive extension for your running backs, because we know after that it's not worth it. It's a fascinating.
The fascinating part is, though, too, like some teams are looking at it as a negative, though. For example, the Raiders have Josh Jacobs, who is a really good player, right? I think 3 straight seasons of at least 1,200 yards from scrimmage. I think by all counts, we think of him as not into like a fantasy or dynasty sense, like a top 15 running back in the league, right? But his 5th-year option, I believe, is like $11 million. Do you want to give Josh Jacobs $11 million guaranteed 2 years from now? I think the Raiders are going to decline that option, hoping that they can get him on a cheaper deal. So I think some teams are looking at it as a negative.
It's definitely fascinating, but just, gosh, when we look at what these players do on their second deals, it is so significant. Give me the guy for one more year, might cost me a bit more money, but honestly, in terms of what you're going to pay out in a second contract, should you extend that player, I still think you're probably going to be saving a bargain. But
I agree.
Would not be surprising for me, like you said, for Breece Hall, maybe to go in the one of the last picks of the 1st round if a team does get antsy to trade up, because I think Breece Hall is easily by far and away the safest running back prospect in this class for your fantasy teams and for your NFL roster, hands down.
All right, so you're not ready to put him in the Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley level tier of prospect, which is fine. Would you consider it was close? Would you consider him a better prospect than Josh Jacobs, who was the 1st running back picked in 2019?
Yes.
Okay.
And yes, I think I would take him above. So right now, if we're looking at the running backs you'd mentioned, I would take Jonathan Taylor, and this is purely as prospects. Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, then Breece Hall, then Josh Jacobs.
And the reason why this is important mentioning this, because people are probably wondering, why do we care about prospects? It's because of how you might value them pre-draft. Like if you're the 3rd pick in your rookie draft, how much extra should you want to trade to go up to number 1 to go get Breece Hall, right? That's why we're talking about him in this sense. Just a couple more. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DeAndre Swift in the 2020 draft. I think he's probably a better prospect than both of those guys.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
So
I would say out of all these guys, Breece Hall ranks 3rd for me as prospect.
Okay. So a notch below the Jonathan Taylor spot, which is fine. I agree with you. I don't think he's quite in that tier, but maybe just below it. I want to talk
about.
That's
also worth saying that I'd rather this is a position where I would be interested to trade up number 1 overall. Obviously, you don't have
I agree.
That same value necessarily, because you are going to have to pay up, especially considering the fact that there's not really a clear line of players behind him in terms of rankings.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's a pick that'll absolutely pay off 100%.
I agree. Let's take a quick break so we can tell you guys about Built Bar. This time of year, everybody's giving up on their New Year's resolutions. They're not going to the gym anymore. They're starting to dive back into the junk food, but not us. And that's because we've got Built Bar by our side. Built Bars are the absolute best tasting protein bars on the market right now. Most Built Bars only contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, but 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Plus, they have so many great flavors, including mint brownie, coconut almond, and the new flavor this month is white chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious, and they've got new flavors coming out all the time. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, a couple more players from the combine I just wanted to mention. Actually, and I should have let you done this. Do you want to talk about Kenneth Walker? Because I know he's your guy.
Just speed for days, blazing speed for days. And I'm just glad, because the home run speed is the thing about Kenneth Walker that we saw over and over on the field. But I love that this translated to the combine and it translates back to the field. Ran an official 4.38. Just couldn't be more excited for Kenneth Walker and just the way he was able to showcase that speed. Because, I mean, gosh, the breakaway speed, it reminds me of that of, a Ronald Jones, a Nick Chubb.
Oh, man.
And like
when you
Nick
say Ronald
Chubb,
Jones, people just start getting like chills up their spine.
You know what? We can say that all we want, but everybody was just as excited for Ronald Jones. So I think they understand that tingly feeling. But I mean, Nick Chubb, that's a guy that we see this home run speed from, and it didn't translate at the combine necessarily. So I think Kenneth Walker definitely bumped his stock, even if ever so slightly, because he very much confirmed everything that we've seen. We've just got to round him out in terms of his receiving, and then he'll be just fine.
So currently right now, he's actually running back 3 right now on Dynasty League football behind Isaiah Spiller, who didn't run at the combine. And that's a little bit interesting considering everybody was running a sub 4.5. Are you shocked that Spiller didn't run?
A little bit. And again, I try not to judge these players when they don't run. It's kind of like that whole concept. I don't know if any of you guys are Law and Order junkies, but you always see the people who aren't testifying at their own trials, and the judge says, "Now you can't hold this against him, that he's not testifying at his own trial." But it is his right not to do that. And then in the post whatever trial interviews of the jury, they're like, yeah, but it's kind of weird he didn't testify at his own trial. And like that's what it feels like for me. And I'm trying to pace myself here, but especially, obviously, like nobody participated in the bench press, but you had everybody running their 40-yard dash pretty much, unless you were coming off an injury. And I just find it interesting that he did not. Isaiah Spiller, not necessarily the perfect prospect to begin with, but I especially when you have Kenneth Walker, and I think those two are so close and tiered. I have Kenneth Walker ahead of Isaiah Spiller, but when NFL fans and fantasy football fans alike have you guys so closely tiered together, and it's not like Isaiah Spiller is a receiving back to begin with. I feel like these two are easily pretty comparable, but I think the fact that Kenneth Walker ran the 40 and he did so very well, I mean, that's got to give him the clear edge, because why don't you run the 40 unless you're testing very poorly?
I don't disagree. A couple other guys I just want to mention. James Cook, running back from Georgia. I think we're going to profile him here in a week or two, but ran really, really well. He ran a 4.4 240 at 200 pounds. Not quite as big as his brother, but a little bit faster. I just like him quite a bit. He's got a lot of really good production, 67 career receptions at Georgia, averaged over 6.5 yards per carry. He's never been a workhorse back in college, but they also had a lot of really talented running backs in Georgia with Samir White, DeAndre Swift a couple years ago, and he's had to play behind all of those guys. So I think James Cook had a great day at the combine, and I think he's a value right now in your dynasty leagues. I'm looking at Dynasty League football right now, and his current draft position is 25. So you're getting him in the third round of your rookie draft. I think he's better than that.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that I'm going to be considering in probably the late second round, because I'm not going to want to miss out on James Cook. But like you mentioned, comparable speed. I love that the folks at the Combine NFL Network did this. They did the little transposition showing Dalvin Cook and James Cook running the 40-yard dash simultaneously. I love that thing. So fun. But to see them like step in step, fantastic. But you mentioned it. It's not necessarily the fact that James Cook never got a full RB1 workload, but I think that might be what's going to keep him out of maybe the second round of your rookie drafts. But like you said, I don't think it comes down to his inability to carry a workload. I think it's just got to do with the talent that has been around him, has preceded him. So even an NFL team probably going to get a really nice steal for that fact alone.
And the only other running back that I wanted to mention was Notre Dame's Kyron Williams, who I know I know a lot of people really liked him going into the combine, and I understand it. I think he's a guy that can help out on passing downs and stuff. Currently RB9 on Dynasty League football, but he came in under 195 pounds and ran a 4.65 40. The hit rate just in general, not factoring in weight, of running backs that run a 4.65 or worse is really, really small. Then when you factor in the weight, he's probably only going to be able to be a part-time player. So somebody who I thought lost a lot of value this week is Kyron Williams.
Yeah, I don't think there's any running back that lost more in terms of their value in dynasty drafts, let alone the NFL draft.
Yeah.
His draft stock took a very big hit on all ends.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because he is a good player. I don't see how he's a top 100 pick in the actual NFL draft, and it wouldn't even surprise me if he goes far later than that, because if you don't have size and you don't have speed, you're just going to be a part-time player in the NFL, and the league does not like to spend high picks on that type of player. So we'll see where he shall land. Let's take one more quick break before we get to our mock draft Monday. So we can tell you guys about BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam with both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fire coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. BetOnline, where the game starts. And if you need player performance help or player prop help, go to Kate. She's great at college basketball, NBA props. So check her out on Twitter at FFBallBlast. Maybe she should be at BBBallBlast now, Kate.
I'm considering a career switch at this point. I'm going to be the Locked On Dynasty Basketball podcast. I think that's my next step, guys.
All right. Mock Draft Monday. This mock comes from Eric Crocker from Locked On NFL Draft. A couple interesting landing spots here for some guys that we care about. Let's start with the first receiver off the board. Garrett Wilson going to the Washington Commanders at pick 11. Do you like that fit?
I do like that fit. I talked about it before, the ability of, 2 Ohio State wide receivers just to absolutely dominate. Garrett Wilson, I think has kind of fell in the wayside of our conversation here with the performance that Chris Olave, his teammate at OSU, put up on the board, because he had an absolutely fantastic combine himself. But Garrett Wilson, I'm just absolutely
he ran faster than Olave, which is shocking. He ran a 4.38.
And nobody's talking about that.
I know.
Literally nobody's talking about that. But I mean, just hands for days, just speed for days. He's so
good
dominant.
After the catch. He's so good after the catch. He's just such a great player. And I actually think reuniting him with two other Ohio State receivers, Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel.
You forget about Curtis Samuel.
I know.
How bad is that?
My comp for Chris Olave is Terry McLaurin. So I think you add Terry McLaurin and Garrett Wilson together, and I think they make a lot of sense. I think that's a perfect fit. Now, what does Washington do at quarterback? Do they get somebody in free agency? We'll see. But Wilson and McLaurin together, a lot of fun there.
What do they do in free agency? Apparently, they just call literally every single NFL team and say, like, "Hey, do you like your quarterback?"
Yeah. Do you remember the last first-round quarterback they drafted? Oh yeah, that was Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State.
Hashtag.
Yeah. Sad.
Yeah. Ouch. Hashtag ouch.
Next one, at pick 13, Chris Olave, who we just got done talking about, going to the Browns. Do you like that fit with Baker Mayfield?
I do, and I think it's kind of the perfect mix of speed and just Chris Olave. He's a well-rounded prospect, but I like that you're maybe sacrificing some of the speed of like an Anthony Schwartz, and I think you're getting a much more refined wide receiver. The question for me is, what do you do with Jarvis Landry? Does he remain? If
I'd move on. Condense your offense basically down to Donovan Peoples-Jones and Chris Olave, sprinkle in Anthony Schwartz, and then just feature David Njoku in the running backs. Like, I almost think the Browns had too many weapons last year going into the season, and it kind of messed everybody up. They couldn't feed everybody enough targets and touches. So
do you think Chris Olave is strong enough to work as a team's alpha wide receiver one? Because that's what I think it comes down to.
On that offense, yes. In a run-first offense that uses a lot of the tight ends, yes, I do.
Okay.
So,
I think it's
all right. Let's keep moving on. Chargers, Jamison Williams. He did not work out at the combine, obviously coming back from the torn ACL, but it's hard to find a better fit than the Chargers for Williams.
I definitely like that. Definitely bummed that obviously he tore his ACL so late in the season, because that's going to set him back a bit in terms of his ability to jump into the team, jump in, get that time in, those reps in with Justin Herbert. I love the fit, but again, my disappointment comes from the fact that when is he going to be ready for your offense? Because this is a team that I think needs the help now more so than later.
Although I do really like it long term, right? If you can just kind of get past the idea that he might not be ready in September and October, and just envision what that offense looks like in January.
Not just that, but like all of these reps that you miss out because he's not ready. Does that set just his entire rookie? And that's okay. If we're looking long term, it doesn't necessarily matter. But we are in this window for the Chargers that I think is a win now.
I don't disagree. It's why, though, I like the idea of if like franchising Mike Williams and then drafting Jamison Williams. So that way,
it would be ideal.
We don't need him necessarily early in the year, but the goal is if we have all of these guys by January, you're gonna have a hard time stopping us.
That's absolutely. I like the move a lot more if we've got Mike Williams under the tag.
I 100% agree. A couple quarterback selections. Which one do you like more? Kenny Pickett to the Saints or Malik Willis to the Steelers?
Obviously, I like Malik Willis to the Steelers.
You're a Pittsburgh person. I thought you were going to say Kenny Pickett to the Saints. Your guy Kenny Pickett.
Well, actually, I might say I prefer Kenny Pickett because that means he didn't get drafted to the Steelers. We talked about the tiny hands. I think Kenny Pickett's actually a really good fit for the Saints. Like we said, playing in the dome, playing in the NFC South where he gets lots of domes. Eliminate the weather as a factor and keep him out of Pittsburgh, please. But I mean, Malik Willis. So I'm going to liken this to, what we saw. I don't expect Malik Willis to start year one. There's been a lot of rumors that Mitch Trubisky could come in and play, sort of as a bridge year. But Malik Willis with, paired with a running back like Najee Harris, who is a capable receiver. Imagine the rushing offense that this could turn into. And that kind of takes you back to like old school Pittsburgh football, just, pounding the football on offense and then playing some really tough defense. That could really transport you back to the Steelers of yesteryear. I think Malik Willis would be such a great fit for that.
Yeah, I actually like Marcus Mariota as the short-term bridge better for the Steelers than Trubisky, right? Because I think Mariota compared with Willis makes a lot of sense, right? Teach him about the ball security and being a little bit safer with the football, how to make reads. I think the Steelers could win 9-10 games with Mariota as a quarterback this year. You let Malik Willis sit. I think it's just the best for everybody. I want to get through a couple more of these because we've got a lot of interesting fits. I'm going to go backwards. Treylon Burks goes to the Packers at 28. And then the Titans at pick 26 draft Christian Watson, the wide receiver from North Dakota State. So Watson going ahead of Treylon Burks. It's not 100% shocking because Watson tested as a far better athlete, 6'4", 10-inch hands, runs a 4.36 40-yard dash, was also really good at the Senior Bowl. Is that the type of receiver that would make sense in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, with A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry?
Well, it's kind of interesting that we juxtapose these picks back to back because this week we got the rumor that one of the three teams that really seems to be in the boat race here for Aaron Rodgers is the Tennessee Titans. So, man, they draft Christian Watson and they finally give Aaron Rodgers the wide receiver that he's ever so wanted. I mean, I think that would definitely be an interesting guy to put, alongside A.J. Brown. Just tall, lanky, like just has this big, tall frame that, maybe AJ Brown, has some more of the tough catches, but I mean, Christian Watson, you got to love the height. I do worry that it's a little bit, falling in love. I worry that it's falling in love with the combine. Cause I do think like, Treylon Burks going behind him is shocking to me because I think Treylon Burks is an athlete that, though he didn't test as well as everybody wanted to see him do, we still have the wealth of production that he's posted in college. And I think that, again, this is kind of falling in love with the shiny new toy a little bit.
I have a hard time believing that Treylon Burks is going to fall to pick 28 here, right? He's just too talented of a player. And my guess and kind of the whispers that we're hearing out of Burks' camp is that he was at like 240, 245 after the season. He spent that time cutting 15 to 20 pounds, and he didn't run as well as maybe they were hoping for. And they've got a pro day later this month. Spend the next 2 or 3 weeks, working on that 40. And if he runs a 4.45 at his pro day, I don't think we're going to be talking about Christian Watson going ahead of Treylon Burks anymore.
No, and God, guys, Treylon Burks, regardless of how much weight he cut after the season, still came in at 6'2", 225, and ran a 4.55. Like I'm not here to complain about that. Has 9 7/8 inches hands, like big boy mitts. I'm buying the dip on Treylon Burks, and I don't think any NFL team is going to be silly enough to let him drop that far. I'm not buying Christian Watson at that.
Yeah, he feels like a top of the second round, mid-second round guy, right?
Yes.
When 26 feels a little high to me. So we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. But this is a good mock, some good landing spots for some of our favorite dynasty assets. No running back in the first round, though. So maybe Crocker doesn't agree with me that Breece Hall is a pretty elite running back prospect. But I wouldn't be surprised, Kate, if we start seeing more and more mocks over the next month with his name sneaking into the first round. We'll see how that plays out. Follow the show wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can check us out on YouTube, Locked On Dynasty on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Dynasty. You can follow Kate for now at FF Ball Blast. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. Enjoy your week, everybody, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, y'all.